The morning fog was just lifting from the manicured grounds of Emerald Valley Equestrian Center when Dana Stevens pulled her battered pickup truck through the elaborate wrought iron gates. The contrast couldn't have been starker, her rusty truck with its squeaking brakes next to the row of gleaming horse trailers that probably cost more than her entire barn. Dana ran Hope Springs Rescue, a small operation about 2 hours north where she rehabilitated horses that had been neglected, abused, or simply discarded when they were no longer useful. She lived on donations, worked 3 part-time jobs to keep the rescue afloat, and poured every ounce of her heart into giving these horses a second chance. In the trailer behind her truck was Whiskey Tango, a 4-year-old thoroughbred warm-blood cross that Dana had pulled from a kill pen 6 weeks earlier. The mare had been hours away from slaughter when Dana scrounged together the $300 to save her life. And honestly, most people would have questioned Dana's judgment. Whiskey Tango was, well, there was no polite way to say it. She was a mess. Her coat was dull and patchy from malnutrition, ribs visible beneath a hide that had clearly seen better days. Her mane was a disaster of tangles and burrs that Dana had spent hours trying to salvage. One of her hooves had an old abscess that had healed poorly, leaving her with a slight limp. At just 15.2 hands, she was too small for serious dressage or show jumping by most people's standards. But it was her face that sealed most people's opinions. Whiskey had what's called a Roman nose, a convex profile that many considered unattractive in sport horses. Her eyes, still recovering from severe malnutrition, appeared small and deep-set. Her ears seemed just a touch too long for her head, giving her an almost mule-like appearance. Not exactly a beauty queen, Dana's assistant had said when they'd first picked her up. But Dana had seen something. In those intelligent eyes, in the way the mare moved despite her condition, in the quiet dignity she maintained, even in the worst circumstances. Dana had been working with horses for 20 years, and she'd learned that the ones who looked the worst often had the biggest hearts. That's why she'd reached out to Natalie Weatherby at Emerald Valley. Natalie was a legend in the equestrian world. She trained Olympic riders, produced national champions, and had a reputation for having an almost supernatural ability to identify potential in young horses. Her facility was immaculate, imported European stabling, Olympic-sized indoor arenas, the latest technology in equine therapy and training. More importantly, Natalie had once told a magazine that she occasionally took on project horses, animals with potential that needed resources and expertise to flourish. Dana had that article taped to her office wall. If anyone could see past Whiskey's rough exterior, Dana thought, it would be Natalie. She'd called ahead, explaining the situation. Natalie had sounded skeptical, but agreed to a quick evaluation. "I can give you 15 minutes, she'd said. "Saturday morning, 8 o'clock. Don't be late." Dana had spent the past week getting Whiskey into the best condition possible. She'd bathed her 3 times, worked for hours on her mane and tail, carefully trimmed her hooves, and made sure the mare was properly fed and rested. Whiskey still wasn't going to win any beauty contests, but at least she looked cared for. Now, as Dana unloaded the mare in front of Emerald Valley's pristine barn, she felt her stomach clench with anxiety. Around them, gorgeous horses looked out from their stalls, elegant warm-bloods with glossy coats, powerful show jumpers with perfect conformation, dressage horses that moved like dancers. And then there was Whiskey Tango, looking like someone's backyard pet. "You must be Dana Stevens." The voice was crisp, cultured, and carried the authority of someone used to being obeyed without question. Natalie Weatherby strode toward them wearing immaculate tan breeches, custom leather boots that probably cost more than Dana's truck, and an expression that made Dana's heart sink. Those cold blue eyes were already assessing Whiskey Tango, and the verdict was written all over her face. "Thank you for seeing us," Dana said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I really appreciate you taking the time. Let's not waste it then." Natalie circled Whiskey slowly, like a judge at a show. Except instead of scoring, she was dismissing. Dana could see it in every glance, every slight frown, every almost imperceptible shake of her head. Behind Natalie, 2 of her working students had stopped their morning tasks to watch. Dana saw them exchange glances and barely suppressed smiles. "You said this mare is 4 years old?" Natalie asked. "Yes, just turned 4 in March." "And what's her breeding?" Thoroughbred Warmblood Cross. Her sire was a thoroughbred who ran at, I can see the thoroughbred, Natalie interrupted. Too much of it, unfortunately. She's got that weedy, undernourished look that's going to be difficult to overcome. And that head, she shook her own head. That Roman nose is a serious conformational fault. She'll never be competitive in dressage with that profile. Dana felt her cheeks burning. She's been through a lot. With proper nutrition and conditioning. Dana. Natalie's voice wasn't cruel, but it was final. I appreciate what you do with rescue horses. I really do. It's admirable work. But Emerald Valley isn't a rehabilitation facility. We're a competitive training barn that produces champions. This mare, she gestured at Whiskey, who stood quietly throughout the inspection, her dark eyes taking in everything. This mare is, frankly, not attractive enough to represent our facility, even if we could address the conditioning issues. But if you'd just let me show you what she can do, Dana's voice cracked slightly. She'd been so sure, so certain, that if Natalie just gave Whiskey a chance, do? Natalie laughed, though there was no humor in it. She can barely stand square. Look at that hoof. An abscess like that indicates poor care from her previous owner, and it's probably affected her soundness permanently. Even if her movement was good, which I doubt, we simply don't have room for charity cases. One of the working students snorted, then tried to cover it with a cough. I have clients paying premium prices for training, Natalie continued. They expect to see top-quality horses in our barn. When someone visits Emerald Valley, every horse they see should represent excellence. I'm sorry, but this mare doesn't meet our standards. She doesn't even come close. Dana felt something break inside her chest. Not for herself. She'd faced rejection plenty of times. But for Whiskey, who stood there with such quiet dignity, despite being discussed like she was worthless. Natalie, please. Dana tried one more time. Just let me put a saddle on her. 10 minutes, that's all I'm asking. Let me show you. No. Natalie's voice was firm. I've seen enough. My assessment wouldn't change, and frankly, I don't want to waste more of my morning. I have real prospects to evaluate today. The words hung in the air like a slap. Real prospects, implying that Whiskey wasn't real, wasn't worth consideration, wasn't anything but a waste of time. Dana's hands tightened on Whiskey's lead rope. The mare shifted slightly, moving closer to Dana as if sensing her distress. That small gesture, that simple act of connection, reminded Dana why she did this work in the first place. I'm sorry you feel that way, Dana said quietly, her voice steadier now. But you're wrong about her. Natalie's eyebrows rose. Excuse me? I said you're wrong. You're looking at her appearance and making assumptions about her worth. You're so focused on what she looks like that you're missing what she actually is. And what is that, exactly? Natalie's tone had turned icy. A horse with heart, with intelligence, with more try in her than half the fancy warmbloods in this barn. But you'll never know that, because you won't even give her a chance. For a moment, Natalie's expression faltered. But then her face hardened again. Dana, I've been doing this for 30 years. I know potential when I see it. And I know when I don't. This conversation is over. Please, remove your horse from my property. Dana loaded Whiskey back into the trailer, her hands shaking with a mixture of anger and heartbreak. As she drove away from Emerald Valley's pristine facility, she caught a glimpse of Natalie and her students in the rearview mirror. They were already walking back toward the barn, back to their perfect horses and their perfect world, where animals like Whiskey Tango didn't exist. It's okay, girl, Dana whispered, though Whiskey couldn't hear her from the trailer. We don't need them. We'll figure something else out. But as the wrought iron gates closed behind them, Dana couldn't shake the image of Natalie's dismissive expression, or the sound of that student's barely suppressed laughter. They had no idea. None of them had any idea what they'd just turned away. Dana drove straight through back to Hope Springs, her mind racing with frustration and doubt. Maybe she'd been wrong about Whiskey. Maybe she'd let her emotions cloud her judgment. Maybe the mare really was just another backyard horse with no particular talent or future. By the time she pulled into her gravel driveway, exhaustion had replaced anger. She'd been up since 5 a.m. getting ready for the meeting with Natalie, and the emotional roller coaster had left her drained. She unloaded Whiskey into one of the small paddocks behind her barn. The facility was nothing like Emerald Valley, just a simple run-in shed, basic fencing, and a small outdoor arena that turned to mud whenever it rained. But it was clean, the horses were well cared for, and there was more love here than in any fancy barn Dana had ever seen. How'd it go? Dana turned to see Jamie Collins walking up from the barn. Jamie was a vet tech who volunteered at Hope Springs on her days off, helping with the medical care and rehabilitation of the rescue horses. "About as well as you'd expect," Dana said bitterly. "Natalie took one look at her and basically laughed us out of there." Jamie studied Whiskey, who was already investigating her new surroundings with calm curiosity. "Their loss? Is it though?" Dana leaned against the fence. "Maybe I'm kidding myself. Maybe I see potential that isn't really there. Maybe I'm just some crazy rescue lady who can't admit when a horse is just ordinary. Or maybe," Jamie said slowly, "you're the only one who's actually looking." Over the next few weeks, Dana focused on getting Whiskey fully healthy. With proper nutrition, the mare's coat began to shine, though her unusual coloring and Roman nose ensured she'd never be conventionally pretty. The limp from her old abscess gradually disappeared as her hoof grew out properly. Her weight increased until her ribs were no longer visible. But it was Whiskey's personality that really began to emerge as she recovered. She was quiet, but intensely intelligent, watching everything with those dark, thoughtful eyes. She learned new things almost instantly: how to open gate latches, which volunteers had treats in their pockets, when feeding time was down to the minute. She was gentle with the other rescue horses, often standing guard while nervous newcomers adjusted to their new home. "She's like the barn manager," Jamie observed one evening as they watched Whiskey systematically move through the paddock, checking on each of the other horses. "She keeps everyone calm." Dana had noticed it too. Whenever a new rescue arrived, scared, traumatized, or aggressive, Whiskey somehow knew how to approach them. She'd stand at a respectful distance, not threatening, just present. And invariably the newcomers would eventually approach her, drawn by her peaceful energy. It was almost 6 weeks after the Emerald Valley debacle when everything changed. Dana was working in the barn when she heard a car pull up. She looked out to see an older man climbing out of a Subaru covered in dust and dents. He was probably in his 70s, with white hair, weathered skin, and the kind of bow-legged walk that came from a lifetime in the saddle. "Can I help you?" Dana called out. "Name's Fletcher Dockery," the man said, extending a calloused hand. "I train cutting horses up in Wyoming. Friend of mine said you might have a young mare that could be worth looking at." Dana's heart skipped. "What kind of friend?" "Veterinary friend. Jamie Collins. She said you pulled a mare from a kill pen a few months back, thoroughbred warm blood cross. Said the mare had something special, even if she didn't look like much." Dana felt a surge of affection for Jamie. "Whiskey Tango, yeah, she's here, but I have to tell you, she's not much to look at. I took her to one of the top trainers on the East Coast, and she basically—" "Don't care what she looks like," Fletcher interrupted. "I care if she's got cow sense." "Cow sense?" "Natural ability to work cattle. It's something you're born with, not something you can really teach. Either a horse has it or they don't." He smiled. "Jamie thought this mare might have it. Said she reads other horses like a book. That's the kind of intelligence I'm looking for." Dana led Fletcher to Whiskey's paddock, bracing herself for another rejection. But Fletcher's reaction was completely different from Natalie's. He stood at the fence for a long time, just watching. Whiskey watched him back, her ears pricked forward with interest. Then Fletcher climbed into the paddock, moving slowly, respectfully, and approached the mare. Whiskey didn't move away. She stood her ground, calm and curious, as Fletcher examined her. He ran his hands down her legs, checked her hooves, looked at her teeth. But mostly, he looked into her eyes. "Smart," he murmured. "Real smart. Can see her thinking." "Would you like to see her move?" Dana asked. "Already saw her move. Watched her walk across the paddock when we pulled up. Good mover. Light on her feet despite that old hoof injury." He straightened up. "What I'd like to do is put her with some cattle. See what happens." Dana blinked. I don't have any cattle, Fletcher grinned. I do. Got a small herd about 10 minutes from here. Lease some pasture land from a local farmer, keep my training cattle there during the summer. You got time this afternoon? An hour later, Dana was sitting on the fence at a small farm, watching as Fletcher saddled Whiskey Tango for the first time since she'd arrived at Hope Springs. The mare stood quietly, accepting the unfamiliar western saddle and bit without fuss. Fletcher swung into the saddle with the ease of someone who'd done it 10,000 times. He walked Whiskey around the small arena for a few minutes, getting a feel for her. Then he opened the gate to the larger pasture where about 20 head of cattle were grazing. What happened next took Dana's breath away. The moment Whiskey saw the cattle, something changed. Her entire body language shifted. Her ears locked forward, her stride became more purposeful, and her attention focused with laser-like intensity on the herd. Fletcher pointed her toward a young steer that had separated from the group. Whiskey needed no further instruction. She positioned herself between the steer and the herd, matching its movements with an uncanny ability to predict which way it would turn. When the steer tried to bolt left, Whiskey was already there, blocking it. When it tried to circle back toward the herd, she cut it off effortlessly. Her footwork was quick and precise, her balance perfect. She moved like she'd been doing this her entire life. Goodness me, Fletcher breathed, and Dana could hear the amazement in his voice even from the fence. This mare's a natural. For 20 minutes, Fletcher worked Whiskey with the cattle. Not once did she put a foot wrong. Not once did she lose focus. She seemed to know instinctively what the cattle were going to do before they did it, positioning herself perfectly, every single time. When Fletcher finally rode her back to the fence, he was grinning from ear to ear. Dana realized she was gripping the fence rails so hard her knuckles were white. Dana, Fletcher said as he dismounted, I've been training cutting horses for 45 years. I've worked with some of the best bloodlines in the country, horses that cost 6 figures, and I have never, not once, seen a horse take to cattle like this on their first try. Not ever. Are you serious? Dead serious. He patted Whiskey's neck. This mare isn't just good, she's exceptional. World-class potential if she's trained right. That thoroughbred blood gives her the speed and athleticism, and there's enough draft or warm blood in there to give her the calm mind and power. But that instinct? He shook his head in wonder. That's pure gift. You can't teach that. Dana felt tears prickling her eyes. Natalie Weatherby said she wasn't worth her time, said she'd never be competitive, that she wasn't even pretty enough to represent a quality barn. Fletcher snorted. Natalie Weatherby trains English horses for rich people who care more about appearances than ability. She wouldn't know a working horse if it bit her, this mare right here. He gestured at Whiskey, who was standing calmly, as if she hadn't just revealed herself to be something extraordinary. She's not a pasture ornament. She's an athlete, a real one. What do I do now? Dana asked, her mind spinning. Well, that depends. You want to keep her as a rescue horse? That's fine. She'll have a good life here. But if you want to see what she can really do, Fletcher pulled out a business card. I've got space in my training program. I'll train her for free, and we'll split any winnings she makes at shows. With her talent, she could be earning serious money within a year. Money that could fund this rescue operation of yours for a long time. Dana looked at Whiskey, who looked back at her with those intelligent dark eyes. The mare who'd been hours from slaughter. The mare who Natalie had dismissed without a second thought. The mare who'd just proven she was capable of something truly special. Let's do it, Dana said. Let's show the world what she can do. The transformation that took place over the next 6 months was nothing short of remarkable. Fletcher Dockery was a master at his craft, and he approached Whiskey's training with the patience and respect that only came from decades of experience. He didn't try to force her or rush her development. Instead, he worked with her natural instincts, refining and channeling the raw talent that had been there all along. She's like a sponge, Fletcher told Dana during one of her weekly visits to his Wyoming training facility. Show her something once, and she's got it. I've never worked with a horse that learns this fast. Dana watched from the rail as Whiskey worked a small herd of cattle in Fletcher's training pen. The mare, who'd been too ugly for Emerald Valley, had filled out beautifully with proper nutrition and conditioning. Her coat gleamed, still an unusual mix of bay and dappled markings that would never fit breed standards but healthy and vibrant. Her muscles had developed into powerful curves. She moved with confidence and precision. But more than her physical transformation, it was her presence that had changed. She worked with an intensity and focus that was mesmerizing to watch. When she locked onto a cow, nothing else existed. She anticipated every move, positioned herself perfectly, never overcorrected or lost her cool. "She's ready," Fletcher announced one morning in late March. Time to take her to a show. The Copper Ridge Cutting Horse Competition was one of the smaller regional events, perfect for introducing a young horse to the show atmosphere without overwhelming them. Dana drove up from Hope Springs, her stomach churning with nervous anticipation. When she arrived at the showgrounds, she was immediately struck by the quality of the competition. These weren't rescue horses or backyard projects. These were purpose-bred cutting horses from established bloodlines, many of them worth tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. Their owners arrived in massive living quarter trailers with corporate sponsorships emblazoned on the sides. And then there was Whiskey Tango, climbing out of Fletcher's modest two-horse trailer with her unusual coloring and Roman nose. Dana heard the whispers immediately. What is that supposed to be? Did someone bring their trail horse by mistake? Fletcher Dockery must be getting desperate if that's what he's training now. Dana felt the old anger rising in her chest, but Fletcher just chuckled. "Let him talk," he said. "Whiskey's gonna do her talking in the arena." Their turn came mid-afternoon. Dana positioned herself at the rail, her hands clenched so tight she could feel her nails digging into her palms. This was it. This was Whiskey's chance to prove all those doubters wrong. Fletcher rode Whiskey into the arena with the quiet confidence of a man who knew exactly what his horse could do. The mare's ears were pricked forward, her attention already on the small herd of cattle at the far end. She practically vibrated with anticipation. The timer started. Fletcher pointed Whiskey toward a young cow that had drifted from the herd. And then he dropped the reins, giving Whiskey complete control. What happened next silenced every whisper, every snicker, every dismissive comment. Whiskey moved like lightning. The cow tried to bolt left. Whiskey was already there, blocking it with perfect positioning. The cow spun right. Whiskey mirrored the movement instantly, her body low and balanced. The cow attempted a series of quick directional changes, testing the mare's ability to keep up. Whiskey didn't just keep up. She anticipated each move, staying perfectly positioned, never giving the cow an inch. The crowd, which had been chattering before, fell silent. Even the other competitors stopped what they were doing to watch. For 2.5 minutes, Whiskey worked that cow with a precision and intensity that was absolutely breathtaking. She never put a foot wrong, never lost focus, never gave up position. It was a masterclass in cutting horsework from a 4-year-old mare on her very first time in a competition arena. When the buzzer sounded, ending their run, there was a moment of stunned silence. Then the crowd erupted in applause. Dana realized she was crying. Beside her, Jamie was grinning so wide her face probably hurt. "That," someone said nearby, "was one of the best runs I've seen from a green horse in 20 years. When the scores were posted, Whiskey Tango had won the novice division by 15 points, a massive margin in cutting horse competition. But more than that, she'd caught everyone's attention. By the time Fletcher had Whiskey cooled down and settled, there were a half-dozen people waiting to talk to him. Trainers, breeders, potential buyers, all wanting to know more about this unexpected mare who'd just demolished the competition. "Where'd you find her?" one trainer asked. "Who's her sire? Is she for sale?" Fletcher smiled. "Found her in a kill pen. Sire's unknown. And no, she's not for sale." The trainer's mouth fell open. "A kill pen? You're joking." "Not even a little bit." That first win was just the beginning. Over the next few months, Whiskey Tango competed in 6 more shows. She won 4 of them outright and placed second in the other 2. Second only to horses with significantly more training and experience. With each win, her reputation grew. Articles started appearing in cutting horse magazines. Videos of her runs went viral in equine circles. People started calling her the Mare from Nowhere and the Miracle Rescue. And with her growing fame came growing interest from buyers. Fletcher started getting calls offering ridiculous amounts of money for whiskey. "Someone just offered me $85,000, Fletcher told Dana after a particularly impressive win. "And that was before I told them she wasn't for sale." Dana felt dizzy. $85,000? For whiskey? That's on the low end. "I've got a client who's willing to go to $150,000 if we'll even consider it." They never considered it. Whiskey wasn't for sale at any price. But the offers kept coming, climbing higher and higher as her winning streak continued. It was in early September, almost exactly 6 months after that disaster at Emerald Valley, when Dana got a phone call that made her sit down hard. "This is Natalie Weatherby from Emerald Valley Equestrian Center," the voice on the other end said. "I'm trying to reach Dana Stevens about a horse." Dana's hand tightened on her phone. "This is Dana." "Dana, hello. I'm calling about a mare you brought to my facility last spring. A thoroughbred warm blood cross. I believe you called her Whiskey Tango?" Oh, this was going to be good. "I remember," Dana said coolly. "You said she wasn't worth your time. That she wasn't attractive enough to represent your facility." There was a long pause. "Yes, well, I've been following her progress in the cutting horse circuit. Quite impressive." "I wanted to discuss the possibility of bringing her to Emerald Valley. I have several clients who've expressed interest in cutting horses, and I think with proper training—" "Proper training?" Dana couldn't keep the edge from her voice. "You mean the training she's already receiving from Fletcher Dockery? The training that's made her one of the most talked about young cutting horses in the region?" "I'm prepared to make a very generous offer," Natalie continued, as if Dana hadn't spoken. "I'd like to purchase the mare. I'm authorized to offer $200,000 with potential performance bonuses." Dana let the silence stretch out. $200,000! For the mare Natalie had dismissed as a charity case. The mare, she'd said, wasn't even pretty enough to be in her barn. "Natalie," Dana said finally, "do you remember what you said to me that morning? You said whiskey would never be competitive. You said she wasn't a real prospect. You wouldn't even let me show you what she could do." "I may have been hasty in my assessment," Natalie said stiffly. "You were wrong," Dana corrected. "You judged her entirely on her appearance, and never once considered that she might have value beyond what you could see on the surface. And now that she's proven herself, now that she's worth something in dollars and cents, suddenly you want her. Dana, I'm trying to make this right. The thing is, Natalie, she was always worth something. She was always exceptional. You just couldn't see it because you were too busy looking at her face to see her heart." Dana took a deep breath. "Whiskey isn't for sale. Not to you, not to anyone. And if she was, you'd be the last person on earth I'd sell her to." "I'm willing to go to $250,000, Natalie said, and there was a note of desperation in her voice now. "That's more than twice what top cutting horses usually sell for at her level. I don't care if you're offering $1 million. The answer is no." Dana hung up. Her hands were shaking, but she was smiling. The Copper Creek Ranch National Cutting Horse Championship took place in November, bringing together the best cutting horses and riders from across the country. It was the most prestigious event of the season, and Fletcher had entered Whiskey Tango in the Open Division, the highest level of competition. "You sure about this?" Dana asked as they walked the showgrounds the day before the event. "The Open Division? Against horses that have been competing for years?" Fletcher nodded. "She's ready. More than ready. She's been begging me to let her show what she can really do." Dana looked at Whiskey, who was taking in the bustling showgrounds with calm interest. It had been 8 months since that humiliating morning at Emerald Valley. 8 months since Natalie Weatherby had dismissed this mare as worthless. Now, Whiskey stood in championship condition. Muscled, healthy, and radiating quiet confidence. Her unusual coat gleamed in the November sun. Her Roman nose, once considered such a flaw, had become her trademark. People recognized her immediately and came over to meet the rescue mare who was beating everyone. The day of the championship dawned cold and clear. The stands were packed with spectators, trainers, buyers, and competitors. This was the event that could make or break reputations, that launched careers and established legacies. Dana found a seat in the stands, her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. Jamie sat beside her, along with several other volunteers from Hope Springs who'd driven up to watch. This wasn't just about one horse anymore. Whiskey had become a symbol of Hope Springs itself, proof that the rejected and overlooked could become champions. Ladies and gentlemen, the announcer's voice boomed across the arena. Next up, we have a remarkable story. Whiskey Tango, a 4-year-old mare rescued from a kill pen just 8 months ago, competing in her first national championship. Trained by Fletcher Dockery, this mare has taken the cutting horse world by storm this season. As the announcer continued, Dana noticed a commotion in the stands across the arena. A woman in expensive clothes was pushing her way toward the front row, her face tight with concentration. It took Dana a moment to recognize her. Natalie Weatherby. She'd come to watch. She'd come to see the horse she'd rejected compete at the national level. Dana felt a surge of satisfaction. Good. Let her see exactly what she'd missed. Fletcher rode Whiskey into the arena. The mare's attention was already locked on the herd of cattle at the far end. She was coiled like a spring, ready to explode into action. Fletcher took her through the herd, letting her settle, then selected their first cow. The moment he dropped the reins, Whiskey went to work. And she was magnificent. The cow she'd selected was experienced and challenging, one that knew how to test a horse. It tried every trick: sudden stops, direction changes, attempts to circle back to the herd. Whiskey countered every single move, with split-second timing and perfect positioning. The crowd was on their feet. Dana could hear people gasping, exclaiming, pointing. This wasn't just good cutting horse work. This was art. Whiskey worked 3 cows during her 2.5-minute run. Each one showed her versatility, her intelligence, her absolutely uncanny ability to predict and counter the cattle's movements. Her footwork was precise, her balance perfect, her focus absolute. When the buzzer sounded, the arena exploded with applause. People were cheering, whistling, stomping their feet. Dana saw seasoned trainers shaking their heads in amazement. Competition judges were conferring with animated expressions. Fletcher rode Whiskey out of the arena with a smile that Dana could see from across the showgrounds. The mare's sides were heaving from exertion, but her head was high, her eyes bright. She knew she'd done well. The wait for scores felt like an eternity. Dana watched as competitor after competitor completed their runs. Some were good. A few were excellent. But none of them had the crowd on their feet the way Whiskey had. Finally, after the last competitor had finished, the announcer's voice crackled over the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the final scores for the open division of the National Cutting Horse Championship. Dana's heart was in her throat. In 6th place, with a score of 221, we have Smokin' Assets, trained by Robert Langford. The announcement continued through 5th, 4th, 3rd, and 2nd place. Each winning horse represented years of breeding programs, hundreds of thousands of dollars in bloodlines, elite training facilities. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to announce that the winner of this year's National Cutting Horse Championship Open Division, with a score of 229, the highest score we've seen in this division in over 5 years, is Whiskey Tango, trained by Fletcher Dockery. The crowd went absolutely wild. Dana found herself sobbing, laughing, hugging Jamie and the other Hope Springs volunteers. They'd done it. The mare from the kill pen, the mare who wasn't pretty enough or good enough, had just won the national championship. Dana pushed her way down to the arena floor, where Fletcher was accepting congratulations from what seemed like everyone in the building. Whiskey stood at the center of it all, calm and dignified, as if winning national championships was exactly what she'd been born to do. "We did it," Dana said when she finally reached them, throwing her arms around Whiskey's neck. "You did it, girl." "She's something special," Fletcher said, his eyes suspiciously bright. "I knew it from the moment I saw her work cattle that first time. But this exceeded even my expectations." As photographers snapped pictures of Whiskey with her championship ribbon and trophy, Dana noticed Natalie Weatherby approaching. The trainer's expression was complicated. Shame, regret, and grudging admiration all mixed together. "Dana," Natalie said quietly, "could I speak with you for a moment?" Dana considered refusing, but something in Natalie's face made her nod. They stepped away from the celebrating crowd. For a long moment, Natalie just looked at Whiskey, who was now surrounded by admirers. "I was wrong," Natalie said finally. Completely, utterly wrong. I judged that mare on superficial criteria and missed something truly exceptional. She struggled for words. It's probably one of the biggest mistakes I've made in my career. Probably? Dana couldn't help the edge in her voice. Natalie's lips twitched. Definitely the biggest mistake. She turned to face Dana directly. I'm not going to ask to buy her again. I understand why you'd never sell her to me, but I wanted you to know that I've been thinking a lot about that day. About how I evaluate horses. About what I've been missing by focusing so much on appearance and breeding and conventional standards. And? Dana prompted. And I'm changing my approach. I've already started working with a rescue organization, taking on project horses that show potential regardless of what they look like. I'll never be able to undo my mistake with Whiskey, but maybe I can keep myself from making the same mistake with other horses. Natalie smiled sadly. Consider it my penance. Dana studied the older woman's face, seeing genuine remorse there. That's good, Natalie. Really good, because there are a lot of horses out there like Whiskey. Horses with incredible potential who just need someone to see past the surface. I know that now. Natalie glanced back at Whiskey one more time. She's remarkable. Congratulations on her win. She earned it. As Natalie walked away, Jamie appeared at Dana's elbow. Did she seriously just apologize? She did. And you didn't rub it in her face even a little bit? Dana grinned. The win did all the rubbing necessary. The celebration continued long into the evening. Whiskey's victory had done more than just win a championship. It had proven something important to the entire equine world. That value wasn't just about bloodlines and appearances, that the greatest horses sometimes came from the most unexpected places. That champions could be found in kill pens if someone was willing to look. For Dana, it meant something even more personal. The prize money from Whiskey's wins, Fletcher had insisted on giving Hope Springs the full share, meant she could expand the rescue operation. She could save more horses, rehabilitate more animals, give more second chances. But perhaps the most important impact was on the horses themselves. Within weeks of Whiskey's championship win, Dana started getting calls from trainers and owners who wanted to know if she had any other diamonds in the rough at Hope Springs. Rescue horses that had been labeled as worthless suddenly had people willing to look past their appearances and see their potential. You started something, Fletcher told her during one of his visits to Hope Springs. Whiskey started something. People are paying attention now to horses they would have overlooked before. Dana watched Whiskey grazing peacefully in her paddock, surrounded by the other rescue horses who adored her. The mare who'd been hours from slaughter. The mare who'd been dismissed as too ugly, too ordinary, not worth anyone's time. The national champion. She was always special, Dana said. Always. Some of us just needed our eyes open to see it. Whiskey Tango went on to have a legendary career in cutting horse competition. Over the next 4 years, she won 12 major championships, earned over $400,000 in prize money, and became one of the most recognized horses in the sport. But her greatest legacy wasn't measured in trophies or prize money. Her story inspired a nationwide movement of trainers and riders willing to give rescue horses a second look. Kill pen numbers started dropping in several states as more people began searching for potential rather than perfection. Multiple Cinderella stories emerged, rescue horses going on to successful careers in various disciplines, proving that Whiskey wasn't a one-time miracle but evidence of a larger truth. Natalie Weatherby became one of the movement's most prominent supporters, using her influence and resources to establish a program that identified talented horses in need of rescue and matched them with trainers willing to develop their potential. She called it the Second Chance Champions program and never missed an opportunity to tell people about the mare she'd once rejected, the mare who'd taught her the most important lesson of her career. Hope Springs Rescue expanded significantly, eventually moving to a larger facility with better training amenities. Dana hired a full-time staff and developed partnerships with trainers across the country. The rescue became known as the place to find horses with potential, and adoption rates soared. As for Whiskey Tango herself, she retired from competition at age 8, having accomplished more than most horses dream of. She spent her retirement years at Hope Springs, where she became the gentle greeter for every new rescue horse that arrived. Scared horses found comfort in her presence. Traumatized horses found healing in her calm energy. She'd gone from being rejected to becoming the heart of an operation that saved hundreds of lives. Sometimes, late in the evening, Dana would find herself standing at Whiskey's paddock, watching the mare graze in the fading light. That unusual coat that Natalie had found so unattractive now seemed beautiful, a unique marking on a truly unique horse. That Roman nose was distinctive and noble. Those intelligent dark eyes held wisdom and kindness. "You changed everything," Dana would whisper. "You beautiful, perfect girl. You changed everything." And Whiskey, in her quiet way, would nicker softly and return to her grazing, as if to say that she'd simply been herself all along. The world had just needed to catch up. Because sometimes, the greatest champions don't look like champions at first glance. Sometimes, they're standing in a kill pen, waiting for someone brave enough to see past their appearance to their true heart. Sometimes, they're the horses everyone else overlooked, dismissed, or rejected. And sometimes, just sometimes, those horses go on to prove that real beauty, real value, and real greatness has nothing to do with conforming to someone else's standards, and everything to do with being exactly who you were meant to be. If Whiskey Tango's story touched your heart, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Have you ever met a horse or a person who exceeded everyone's expectations? Have you ever been underestimated yourself, only to prove the doubters wrong? Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss our inspiring horse stories. Every week, we bring you tales of remarkable horses and the humans who believe in them. And remember, the next time you encounter someone or some horse who doesn't fit the conventional mold, take a second look. You might just be standing in front of the next champion. Until next time, keep believing in second chances, keep looking beyond appearances, and never underestimate the heart of a horse. Thanks for watching.